Hello, hello. I'm Cindy Fisher. I'm with the Black Belt News Network, and this is a statewide wrap up of the politics of the state of Alabama in the year 2024. We're going to do a little review and then we're going to talk about 2025. And I am here with Paul DeMarco, who is a former state representative and a columnist. You often see his columns in the Selma Sun Print Edition and the Black Belt News Network. And we are going to talk today about the top topics out of the state of Alabama legislature in 2024. Touch on a little bit from that we expect from 25. Thanks for being with me here.
Happy New Year. Hope you and your viewers are all well.
Okay, so let's get into the legislative review. Let's talk about one of the main things that is pretty obvious as we enter into the session that's coming up is that it is the last 2 years for Governor Kay Ivey. What do you see as being some big issues that she's got to tackle in these last 2 years?
Yeah, it's amazing. I think Governor Ivey is going to come down as being one of the longest serving governors, if not in the state of history of Alabama. First as lieutenant governor, then coming in after Governor Robert Bentley had to resign, she stepped up, became governor, and then has been reelected and several times. And so, she has served in some of the most difficult times in Alabama history during the pandemic. But she's also served when we've had very robust economies and very low unemployment. And so it's kind of a tale of two stories. She's had to take on some very difficult issues. But despite that, she is usually annually ranked as one of the most popular state executives in the nation.
And a big thing with 25 is going to be municipal elections. Speaking of elections, we have a lot of governments that will be running because they pushed it off of the federal elections in 24. So I know Selma's one of those that will have an election 25. What do you see as that being a big issue for next year?
Yeah, so 2025 will be a tale of two election cycles. And I know everybody's like, oh my gosh, we just got through with this huge presidential election and that's been going on for a couple of years and we want to take a break. No, gear up for a marathon. So first of all, in August, we'll have the municipal elections. There'll be a few that won't, but the majority of cities in the state will have their municipal elections for mayors and city councils come August. But after the first of the year, you're going to start seeing some rumblings. And obviously by next summer, when you have qualifying, you'll see a lot of names out there, people running for both mayor and city council across the state. But what you're also going to see, Cindy, is announcements for the 2026 statewide offices. So in 2026, all the constitutional officers, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, state auditor, treasurer, those will all be up, in addition to all 140 members of the Alabama legislature.
Oh, my goodness.
And you're saying, well, why 25? Because most importantly, what's the milk of politics? It's the mother milk. It's raising money, and any candidate start raising money a year in advance of the party primaries. And in Alabama, a lot of the decisions are made in the party primaries. So come this upcoming May 1st of June, everybody can start raising money a year in advance. But to do that, they're going to announce. So gear up for a lot of announcements of who will be running for the.
So 25, we're not finished. Hold your breath because 26.
That's exactly right. So probably this spring, you'll start seeing a lot of announcements of candidates running for office in 2026. Well, simultaneously, you'll have these municipal elections going on as well, Cindy.
So I think another huge one we hear every session is gambling. What's going to come up with gambling this year?
Well, there are two, hills about gambling. Last session in 2024, last spring, there was a comprehensive gambling bill passed the House after a lot of work by the Speaker of the House, went to the Senate. A lot of debate. The bill was pulled back, went back to the House. They passed it. Then it came back to the Senate, lost by one vote. One vote, lost by one vote. So what will happen in 2025? The Speaker of the House has already said, you know what, we've been through there. If y'all want to do something on gambling, originate the bill in the Senate. Well, there's been a change in the Senate. There is a new pro tem, Greg Reed, State Senator Greg Reed, has now left his position to go work with Governor Ivey's administration, and so you have a new pro tem, Garland Goodger, out of Coleman. So it will really be, does he end up bringing this gambling bill back up for a vote? And where will the votes be? Just because there was one vote less last year doesn't mean there'll be one this upcoming session. And I think the House is saying, y'all take care of this if you're going to do it. So there's a lot of moving parts,
Yeah.
always the gambling. It took up so much time. A lot of the legislators are like, you know what? It just sucked all the air out of the room. We couldn't get to other issues. So we'll see if gambling comes up again and what happens in 2025 with the gambling issue.
What about crime? We've talked a lot of, this year has been a really difficult year for a lot of municipalities. A lot of, like Birmingham had a record number of murders. Selma's on track for that as well. Montgomery has had a tough time. What do you see coming up in the state legislature? Maybe curb that.
Well, look, there's been a lot of talk about it. And the question is, will this be a priority for legislative leadership as well as the governor? When the governor gives her state of the state, when she comes back at the first of the legislative session, will she make this a priority? She was very successful about, I guess it's been about 5 years now, of reforming the parole board. We had a parole board that was letting out folks that should not have been on the streets, not supervising. It's a terrible situation. Got reformed, put in a new parole board chair in Lee Gwaltney, who's done a great job. But it's a bigger picture. Part of the issue is, will the legislature finally come back and model the federal system where you have more of a truth in sentencing when it comes to the way it has happened? But it is a huge issue in Alabama. It's a huge issue to the citizens who feel that public safety should be the number one priority. I know we've got 2 new prisons being built in the state, but as we look to 2025, I think if you ask the average citizen, they would say public safety should be one of the main priorities for state representatives and senators in 2025.
Yeah, and it's an uphill battle, but we would like to see something new.
Yeah, so I think you'll see this in this upcoming session, some bills related to criminal justice.
So there's some budgetary issues that are going to be a concern next year. The COVID dollars that we saw flooded in for so long is running out. So what do you see as being something with budgets that will come up in 25?
That's exactly right. A couple of issues. You know, the state has had record education budgets, record general fund budgets the past couple of years, but now lawmakers are going to have to pull back some and start making some decisions on what state agencies don't get what they were getting before, because you did have COVID dollars that were used for infrastructure and healthcare and different issues. There's already talk about education funding and changing the formula. We've had some other states like our neighbors in Mississippi that have changed the formula. And there's a real question, what will that mean for rural, suburban, urban schools? There haven't been any decisions made on that, but there's been several committee meetings talking about that. So we'll see, does that happen this year or the following year? But there's a lot of talk about these budget issues. Plus, with the issues of inflation, this will be the first year that I think you start seeing a real retreat back from some of these record budgets as lawmakers are trying to figure out how to balance the budget, which is a good thing. The state constitution requires we have a balanced budget. So you'll hear a lot about that early in the session. Where are the priorities going to be when it comes to funding? Some of the issues that were funded in the past won't be there.
Wow. And I'm going to throw you a curveball on this one. What about grocery tax? Do you think that will come up for reduction?
Well, hopefully the legislature did a couple of years ago remove 1 cent of the 4-cent sales tax. And there was the legislation allowed for there to be a trigger to remove the second penny of that 4-cent sales tax, but the Education Growth Fund was not there. And because of that, you're going to have to see more growth in the economy in Alabama to remove that second tax. I know lawmakers do want to remove that second tax and eventually remove all 4 cents, since Alabama is in the minority of states that have the grocery tax. I know that is a priority.
To be a little more unfair to those in my area, in our region of the Black Belt. So we would definitely like to see that reduction. I think it would help our pocketbooks.
Look, there is no question that I think everyone wants to get to the point to remove the sales tax on groceries. It's just a matter of, what the budgets and unfortunately this may be one of those more difficult years, but I don't think there's any question that there's going to be another push. It may not be this session or next session, as we're trying to sort out with the removal with the federal funds going away and some of the budgetary issues, trying to figure out how to remove the entire 4 cents off of groceries, Cindy.
Oh, wow. And Medicaid expansion is a whole other curveball to throw you that I know is an issue for rural hospitals, especially, which we have struggled so much to keep Thomasville's open. Demopolis is doing okay, and Vaughn and Selma does okay, but we really struggle down here. Any thoughts on that for next year?
There was some talk at looking at some other states about how they did so their funding, not doing the complete expansion that had been talked about for years that a lot of the states have, but trying to figure out a way to do that without going the whole way. Looking at some of the sort of there's been some discussions on it. Now, again, I think you'll hear some more about it. And look, the governor has taken on a lot of difficult issues. And I know these are one of the issues that she has looked at on how to take care of healthcare funding, particularly with some of these rural hospitals that have struggled since COVID beyond.
And maybe other ways. So I always like to add that blackbeltnewsnetwork.com is where we are running all of our stories. Your columns can be found under the opinion section. If you have news to share with us, send it to news@blackbeltnewsnetwork.com. And every single day, we send out a daily newsletter at 3 o'clock. Sign up for that free newsletter. It gives you all the news that you need to know from the day. It comes out at 3. It costs you nothing. None of our content costs anything. And that is because we take donations, and that helps us keep all of our content free. So thank you so much for joining us and being with us for this Politics 2024, looking forward to 2025, and we will talk to you again, hopefully before the session starts. And we have talked about maybe talking regularly during the session, so I hope to catch up again with you soon.
Thank you, Cindy. Hope y'all have a great new year.